كانت حققت تدريب وتعطي
لترشيح لعماد ميشيل عون.
المعارضة السورية هي اللي تحدد من يمثلها.
Good afternoon, you're watching the English newscast on Future Television. I'm Lynette Tamim and these are today's top stories. Syria's main opposition group will meet with UN Special Envoy for Syria, Staffan de Mistura, a meeting which could pave the way for peace talks. Interior Minister Nuhad al-Mashnout says the town of Assal can only be freed by its people, and Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah's speech only hinders progress towards holding presidential elections. And Health Minister Wael Abu Faoud says 85 municipalities were referred to the judiciary over garbage burning. Talks between the UN Special Envoy for Syria, Staffan de Mistura, and government representatives have been rescheduled to allow for talks with the opposition first. Syria's main opposition group said it will meet with de Mistura this afternoon after he gave them a positive response and they received assurances from international backers on humanitarian issues. The UN says there should be no amnesty for people suspected of committing war crimes as talks aimed at ending Syria's war continued to struggle in Geneva. Zaid Ra'ad al-Hussein, the top UN human rights official, maintained that the deliberate starvation of Syrians was a potential war crime and a crime against humanity that should be prosecuted. He said the statement may be agreed as part of a peace deal. Interior Minister Nuhad al-Mashnouk says Arsal will not be liberated by military actions, but said it should be rather freed by its people. Mashnouk met with Grand Mufti Sheikh Abdul Latif Derian in Dar al-Fatwa, with whom he tackled the clashes between Islamist militants and the Lebanese army. Regarding the presidential vacuum, Mashnouk said Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah's speech on Friday only hinders any potential progress towards holding presidential elections. And still in Lebanon, Health Minister Wael Abu Faoud says 85 municipalities have been referred to the judiciary over garbage burning, despite repeated warnings to end the dangerous and illegal practice. After heading an emergency meeting over the country's ongoing trash crisis, Abu Faoud said the priority was to end garbage burning and vowed his ministry will continue to uncover the violations of municipalities, factories, and hospitals. And coming up next, Inspirational Women series is next with Asma Andraus and Yumna Naufal. Stay tuned. Over to you, Yumna.
Thank you, Linda. Continuing our Inspirational Women Series 2016 with Asma Andraus. Asma is the managing partner of STRI, a Beirut and Dubai-based events design and production agency. In the past few years, Asma and her partner have managed to grow STRI into a well-established event marketing and live communication operation in Lebanon, Europe, and the GCC countries. In 2005, following the assassination of then Prime Minister Rafiq Hariri, Asma was very much involved in the Cedar Revolution of Lebanon, during which she led the civil society group within the Independence 05 movement. Following her being honored as one of the 2005 heroes by Time magazine, she was approached by then the Prime Minister's office and worked in the Presidency of Council of Ministers under the guidance of Dr. Mohammed Shatah in her capacity as Communications Advisor from 2006 to 2010. Thank you, Asma, for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Those are a lot of titles there, and the list can go on. So I tried to make it a little bit shorter because, you know, there isn't enough time to state all the titles and all the things that you do, one of which is the events management and events planning.
Correct.
But more interesting than that is, you know, I remember attending a talk where you said that in 2005, after the Prime Minister's assassination, you started the civil society movement within the 05. What was it, the 05 movement?
We called it I recall we called it المجتمع المدني. In fact, the reason why we tried to position ourselves as civil society movement was because we were not a political party. We were just a group of citizens that rose to the challenge, if one can say it that way. And so because we were not a political party, but we wanted to be on the ground and we wanted to be involved, we created the first small tent which we called the خيمة المجتمع المدني, the tent of the civil society. I know the civil society is a very wide and big word, so it would be absurd to imagine that we are the civil society. It was just our way of saying we're not a political party, but we think we belong here, we'd like to be involved. And this is how our tent was set up, and this is how then things
This is how
grew.
the Cedar Revolution kind of slowly, gradually took place afterwards.
Absolutely. I don't like to say that we were the people who made it grow. As we well know, 1 million people made it grow, and maybe more, because behind all those million in the streets, there were plenty
a million people were on that square, Martyr Square, that March 14th. But not 1 million people got to be named Times 2005 Hero of the Year. We have the pictures that are about to show now as we speak. You know, I know that was a big changing part for you, a changing moment, because I remember you said Mr. Twaini was the one who came to basically, or Dr. Shattah, which one was it?
No, the Time magazine thing was a lot of fluke too, just to keep things into perspective. Gibran Twaini at the time was very good friends with the Times editor-in-chief for the Middle East Bureau. And that person, Scott McLeod, I don't know what he's doing these days, was based in Cairo at the time, and of course was in Beirut because he was following up on what was happening.
Well, why did they call you a hero of the 2005?
I think it's a series of circumstances that led me to actually land on that cover of Time magazine. But what really happened is that they wanted someone from Lebanon as part of that group of people on that year. They asked for suggestions from Gibran. Gibran suggested me. I think it worked well. I was a woman and I was an activist and I was involved and I could speak languages. And I think that was a lot of luck too.
You're an activist as well as you've kept STRI. We started by saying STRI was your events planning firm, and you've been able to be a political advisor and a communication advisor, as well as keep STRI going on, right?
Absolutely.
So
I like to think of myself as a communications advisor, not a political advisor.
Okay, so a communication advisor.
Absolutely.
PR and events management, they kind of go hand in hand, don't they? It's
Absolutely.
all about the image. Is that what you've studied at first? Did you always knew you wanted to become?
No, I studied political science. Years and years and years ago now. I studied political science. I minored in communications. So I knew I was interested, but I came back to Lebanon in '92. There wasn't much room really for any kind of political activism at the time for the reasons that we all know. And so I started my business back then, and then I really had nothing to do with politics all along.
But although you are very involved as well with the political scene.
I really only got involved in 2005.
Right.
Prior to that, I was pretty much, I like to say I was in my bubble. Was not involved, was not interested, could tell you more about local municipal elections in France than about what was really happening here. Was quite disenfranchised, the Syrians were all over the place, there was very little room for maneuver. And then when the assassination took place in February of 2005, for a reason still unknown to me today, I got terribly angry and therefore hyperactive. And somehow I find myself in the streets, there were people behind me, etc., and one thing led to the other. I then stayed in that camp for 64 days, and then I met Dr. Shattah, like you said, and then he convinced me to join him in the Serai, and that was the beginning of that adventure.
It's an adventure that took you to becoming also, you became in charge and you put together Paris 30 in 2007.
Again, just to be fair, I helped on the events part of it. Of course,
Right.
there are economists and policy makers who were involved in actually the
So
content
the way
of
the
that
image is
paper.
presented, we're seeing images as you were speaking. We're seeing image of the Istiqlal, I think, movement, was it, or
Oh
the
yes,
the
05 independence.
the 05 independence, as well as the blue slogan with the Mustaqbal, Tayar Mustaqbal. You came up with that. I just want people to know that was. I remember you said you chose blue for hope and the sky, and then the sun for a new day. What was it exactly?
That's exactly it. I wasn't the only person. Obviously, there was a whole. It's a group. It's a teamwork.
She doesn't want to take credit for herself.
No,
as
it's
you
not
can
fair.
See.
It's not fair to a lot of other people who are always involved. I mean, some people somehow end up in the front picture and others don't. But it's never one person who decides on a slogan, a color, or on a revolution. I mean,
There's an important question I want to ask you. You know, we mentioned Dr. Shattah. We mentioned then Prime Minister Rafiq Hariri. We mentioned Gibran Twaini. You've seen a lot of these figures, I know, have been mentors to you, and you were very close to them, and you've seen them all go, one after the other. Yet you remain in Lebanon, pushing for women issues, women empowerment. I know you've moderated and you've led a lot of panels on women empowerment, and you stay here despite all this terrible, terrible news. Why do you do it?
For their memory, to make sure that they did not die in vain, for their message to pursue, to continue, to remain. And because it's my country, it's where I feel I belong, and it's where I feel happy despite all the reasons to be unhappy. Ghassan Toueni used to say this is not a hotel, it's a country, so you don't just check out when things aren't working. That's one thing. The other thing is...
Do you ever feel hopeless, though? I mean,
Sometimes I do. I'm human. Sometimes I think, oh, are we ever going to see the end of this? Is our cause going to win?
And what keeps you?
Hope.
Right.
You have to keep hope. I think it's the only way to keep going. I think it's also a sense of, I don't like the word duty much, but it's a way of remaining faithful to their memory. These people at the end of the day did not die because they slipped on a banana peel. They were assassinated because of their political beliefs. And for that reason, I think it is really the duty of every single one of us who knew them or who were close to remain true to that cause, because what else remains once they're gone?
This is part of our Inspirational Women series, and a lot of women I know in Lebanon, part of the youth, whether it's women or men, but we're speaking of women specifically, want to leave. They say it's not a place to stay, it's not a place to be. It's a recurrent theme here. So if you had to give them one piece of advice, what would it be?
Hit the streets. Hit the streets. I really, really think, and I'm not just saying it to say it, that the solution lies within people who are today aged between 18 and 30. The rest of us are too old, too comfortable, possibly too sour. I really think what we need to face is two things. One, there is a serious problem with our political system. I don't want to go into that, it's not my business, I'm not a politician. But there obviously is something that is failing. I think the other thing is we really have to I'm convinced that the day there are more women represented in every single walk of life, anything, private sector, public sector, ministries, embassies, MPs, CEOs, in the banking sector, in the finance sector, the world will be a better place. There's a reason why, and I'm not just saying it to say it. The UNDP conducted a study on that.
The world definitely, but Lebanon specifically.
Even more so. Even more so. At the end of the day, we're half the population, right?
Yeah.
If not a bit more now, because it seems that there are more women than men in Lebanon.
7-1, I hear.
So we're more than 50%.
Lucky place for the men to be here,
We're
right?
many, many women, and there are plenty of very competent women everywhere. There is, for some reason, I'm not sure, or many reasons, I'm sure some are ingrown in our traditions, and some are just, I think, because people have become defeatists. Women have to be involved, but no one's going to give it to them. They really need to get down onto the streets, ask for their rights, ask for more. No one's going to come and say, hey, women, here are your rights.
I know.
Right?
I want to end on just one question. You know, I know your personal life has been also very important to you. Do you think women can have it all?
It's a very good question. Yes, provided they're very, very, very organized.
Right, disciplined?
Very disciplined, very organized, and 10 times stronger than an average man.
Because women need to do 10
so
times
much
more.
So much more. Women to this day, even in the West, have really, okay, they've gained their rights at work, but they still have to do most of the bulk of the work at home, with their husbands, with their children. So I think women are generally superwomen. They just have to believe it.
All right. Well, thank you for being with us
Thank
today.
you for having me.
That was Asma Andraus for Inspirational Women Day 2016. Back to you, Linda.
Thank you, Yumna. This marks the end of our bulletin for today. Now for a recap of our top stories. Syria's main opposition group will meet with UN Special Envoy for Syria, Staffan de Mistura, a meeting which could pave the way for peace talks. Interior Minister Nahad Mashnout says the town of Arsal can only be freed by its people, and Saeed Hassan Nasrallah's speech only hinders progress towards holding presidential elections. And Health Minister Wael Abu Faour says 85 municipalities were referred to the judiciary over garbage burning. Those are your headlines for today. Make sure you tune in again tomorrow for more updates. Take care.
أنا زيارة محطات التبليغ وتعطوني
لترشيح لعماد ميشيل عون.
المعارضة السورية هي اللي تحدد من يمثلها.